Well, hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Wellness by Design. Today, I'm Jane Hogan, the wellness engineer, and today I'm going to talk about getting cold. Getting cold. I've been doing cold water dips. I did one a week for 52 weeks in 2022, and I'm continuing on. But you know what? Whenever I tell anyone about what I'm doing or they see me, they say, I could never do that. I could never be cold. And I find it funny because I probably would have said that myself. I never liked the cold. I still don't really like the cold, but I like how I feel after the cold. But I wanted to talk to you today about how there's so many health benefits. I'll talk about that. And also, the newest research is saying that you really don't have to be underwater or have that much cold, very long cold exposure. You can have a short exposure, and I'll talk about how long later on in the episode to get the same health benefits. So, let me tell you a little bit about my background with cold therapy. So, years ago, when I was in my university years, I did a work term in the Netherlands, in Holland. And so this was the first time I kind of seen this where the pool that I went to, they had a beautiful sauna, but they also had this cold pool that was I would say about 4 feet, 4 feet in diameter. And it was enough for one person to get in up to their neck kind of thing. And it was cold, cold water. So the idea was you get in the sauna, you get in the cold, you get back in the sauna, and it actually felt strangely good, like weird to get in the cold, cold to get in the cold. But then getting back in the sauna afterwards, it just felt really good for the skin. So that was sort of my first exposure. And then we were lucky enough to get a hot tub, and that was probably 20 years ago. And my kids used to love doing this. They'd roll in the snow, they'd be in the hot tub, they'd roll in the snow, and then they'd get back in the hot tub. And so I started doing that too. And actually, you'd get this beautiful, weird kind of tingly feeling from the snow and your skin, I guess, as the temperature change would hit the skin, you get all this tingle, and it's kind of felt nice in a strange way. Um, and then in my neighborhood here, there was always on New Year's Day the polar bear dip, they called it, the polar bear dip. And so a whole bunch of people would, run out. We live on a river. We'd run out and, dunk down in the river and get back out again. And it was kind of a fun social thing and a great way to ring in the new year. And so I used to do that, and that was fun. And then I got the idea when my daughter was visiting, we decided we would this was in January, we would do a dip in the river every day for a week. So we did that. And that was kind of, having the commitment there made me do it. And I forgot to say that along the way, I had discovered when my health took a turn in 2016, I started looking at all kinds of ways to try to relieve this pain and inflammation naturally. And I kind of started following the biohacking world, Dave Asprey. It was called the Bulletproof Radio back then. It's now called I forget, Upgrade, The Human Upgrade, I think is the name of his podcast now. But I started reading his books as well, and I learned about cold exposure, how it's good for your body on so many levels. And he talked about having cold showers or like dipping your face into water. And so I had been doing that. And then started the dipping. And then I had started, after my daughter left, I was going to continue dipping once in a while. And I did it for a little while and then it kind of fell off. So I realized that what I really needed to make myself do it is a commitment. So the kind of person that I am, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. Really to myself, but publicly makes a big difference. So I decided to announce on, my social media channels that I was going to do one cold water dip a week for 52 weeks in 2022. And so I did that. I did that in 2022. I did 52. Actually, I did one more, one for good measure. My husband joined me for that one. He was usually behind the camera videotaping. So I posted all of these every single week on my social media, Instagram, Facebook, my personal Facebook. If you want to check it out there, YouTube. I don't know if I posted every single week on YouTube, but a lot of them are there. So, what did I learn? Over the year, I had actually read the Wim Hof method. I got the book right here. So he's known as the Iceman. He's done a lot of work and really, I think, made this whole cold plunge therapy popular in the last number of years. I mean, it's one of the big wellness trends of the last few years. You see all these celebrities, with these ice baths and things like that. So anyway, I had read about this, and he's actually helped people with rheumatoid arthritis. So I've got, I don't even know if I have rheumatoid arthritis anymore, but I was diagnosed in 2016. But he helps people with rheumatoid arthritis. Part of it is breath work, part of it is the cold therapy. So that was another kind of interest that I had. And, could I help with lowering pain and inflammation? And so what I found actually over the year was I noticed that it was very hard every single week except in the summertime on hot days, it wasn't so hard. But generally when it was cold, I had to really talk myself into doing it. And on the way down, I'd be like, why am I doing this? But I know I'm doing it because I know I'll feel better afterwards. But I always had to talk myself into it. It was not easy. It really didn't get any easier doing it on those cold days because every single part of us rebels against it, right? Every part of us is like, why do this? You can just stay comfortable and warm. We've got a nice, comfortable, warm house. I don't have to get cold. But because of my commitment, and also because I knew after a while that it did really help me, I continued to do it. Week after week, I would go down and get in that cold river. I live in Newfoundland in Canada, so in the wintertime, it's pretty cold. There was days when I had to, chip away at the ice to get out there. It's a pretty big river, so it doesn't freeze over fully, but there would sometimes be ice floating by and ice at the edge. So, and it's windy and cold and nasty, but sometimes very beautiful with ducks and beautiful sunrises. So I felt like I was connecting to nature as well. I felt like I was connecting to my place where I live, and that felt really special as well. But I also noticed that after I got warmed up, so I would come back, I'd get in that hot tub or I'd have a shower to warm up, and then I would be toasty warm for the rest of the day. And I tended to be a bit of a cold person. So yeah, I would be toasty warm the rest of the day and not like overheated, just comfortable. Another thing I noticed is that when I was in the water, I was in the moment. It was like beautiful mindfulness because you can't, when every part of you is saying get out, get out, get out. And my goal was to stay down. Most of the time I tried to stay for 3 breaths, not a big long time, but for 3 breaths, 3 slow breaths. So I would put my hands together and close my eyes most of the time and just focus on the breath. So I really got in the moment when I was doing it. And also, I noticed that, well, I felt so proud of myself. I had a bit of an elevated mood afterwards. And it was something that, and something I was proud of accomplishing, actually. And, when you take on little challenges like that, some people may say that was a big challenge, but it still was just really getting outside my comfort zone, right? So when we get outside of our comfort zone in one area, we can apply this to other areas. So, speaking in public is another big fear a lot of people have. I feel, of course, I would still feel nervous about doing that, but I'm not afraid to do it. I will do it. I hosted a summit with 36,000 people attending last year. I conducted all these interviews with very big name people. And you know what? I I was not nervous about doing it. I just did it. And I feel like the cold therapy was part of that. Part of it, of course, is that I feel called, and it's that it's my passion and purpose and mission to do this work as well. And so that helps me move past the fear of like starting a podcast, and will anyone listen, and does this even matter to anyone? And so all of that, it does help. I do believe it does help. Um, and the one of the other interesting things is I never got COVID. I traveled a lot starting in April of 2022, and each time I was exposed to people who had COVID. In fact, on one of the trips, I sat next to a person all day on the last day who shortly afterwards tested positive for COVID, like the next day. So I was basically, sitting next to her during that time. I know the last person I hugged before I left that day, I found out afterwards, tested for COVID a couple of days later, and I never got it. And then in November, no, December, when I traveled, I actually was sharing a bed with the person who, while we were there, got sick, and when she got home the next day, tested positive for COVID. So, I mean, it was a king size bed, and we weren't like cuddled up or anything, but still, we were in the same space, and I never got COVID. Now, maybe the cold had nothing to do with it, all the dipping that I was doing, but I feel like it helped. And what's really interesting is that there's new science behind this. So there's this lady, Dr. Susanna Soberg from the University of Copenhagen. She's actually written a book. What's her book called? Her book is called, let me see if I can find it. No, I can't find it right now. Anyway, she's written a book. It's called Winter Swimming. And there's a subtitle, I can't remember it now. So Dr. Susanna Soberg, she's been studying cold exposure and looking at how the physiology of the body changes with cold exposure and also heat exposure. So kind of like what I saw when I was in the Netherlands, she lives in Denmark. And so this whole thing of sauna and cold and heat has been around for a long time over there. It's not something new over there. It's not a new trend. It's been around for years. When I did my work term in the Netherlands, that was in the late 80s. So that was a long time ago. Okay, so what she's found, I'm just looking here. She said the benefits are that there's increased metabolism, increased immunity. So this could be why I never did get COVID with all the exposure. In fact, I don't get sick. I don't get sick at all. And I say as I sniff, but that's not sickness. Lowered insulin resistance. It can help with weight loss because of the increased metabolism, right? So it can help with weight loss. Eases muscle and joint pain. I certainly found that. I think I don't have a lot of pain right now, but anytime that I did, it really did seem to help. So yeah, if I was having a flare or something. And then mental health. So the research shows that it releases mood elevating hormones. So people tend to feel better afterwards. And it's also like a healthy kind of stress. Often this is called hormesis. So basically, it's kind of like an army that goes through boot camp, right? They go through this stress of boot camp, and it makes them stronger. And there's some that don't get through boot camp, right? So they kind of fall off. But so then the army is stronger as a result of going through some stress. Not enough stress to like kill them all, but enough stress to kind of let the weaker ones go. So in our body, it's kind of the same way. We go on, if we have some stress, not terrible stress, but some stress like a cold exposure, some of the weaker or cells in our body will die off, and so the organism, us, will be stronger as a result. So that's hormesis. And also that this, when you do this kind of practice, it's the ultimate in mindfulness. I mean, when I'm down in the cold, I don't think about, I wonder what I should get for groceries this week or anything else. I'm not thinking about anything but being in the moment. Just breathe. Feel the cold, feel the air, just breathe. I mean, that's really literally all I'm thinking is just breathe slowly. One more breath or two more breaths or whatever it is. So it's the ultimate in mindfulness. So what Dr. Soberg has found is that the key player is brown fat. Have you heard of brown fat before? Brown fat is a good thing. It's a healthy fat in our body, and it's actually along our spine. So, pockets of it along our spine, up and down the spine, and it acts as our body's temperature regulator. And it's kind of like use it or lose it. So if you never get cold, you tend to lose the brown fat in the body. But when you do have this cold exposure, it helps increase the brown fat. And so this brown fat, it's loaded with mitochondria. So if you remember from high school biology, mitochondria are the energy producers in our cells. Some cells have There's some cells that have no mitochondria, some have average amounts, but there's some cells in the body and organs in the body that the cells within those organs are loaded with mitochondria. So brown fat is one. Brain, our eyes, the heart, the liver tend to have a lot of mitochondria. So when we do the cold exposure, this brown fat increases, so we get more mitochondria. So they're energy producers, but also it's producing that heat, right? So it helps regulate the temperature in our body. So the brown fat is a key player, and it's not something I'm hearing a lot of people talk about. And maybe you haven't either, or maybe you have. So brown fat is interesting. It's a good thing. If you search, just do like a image search for brown fat on Google, you'll see in diagrams that kind of show the pockets of it along the spine. So another thing that Dr. Soberg found was that the exposure to cold does not have to be long. So I was really happy to hear this, because my goal was always 3 breaths. And if I was doing the breath slowly, that would be about 30 seconds. And she says that 30 seconds is optimal, kind of. So if you stay in this the cold exposure, so she's not specifically talking about cold plunges like I was doing. It could just be being outside with your shirt off, or just being exposed to cold. The benefits, you get all the benefits of cold exposure with 30 seconds of exposure, and that longer exposures don't increase the benefits. So in other words, you don't get more mood boosting chemicals, for example, with longer exposure beyond 30 seconds, or the hormesis or the brown fat. So 30 seconds is all you need. So I was really happy to hear this, because part of me felt like I was a little bit of a chicken, not going for longer, but that I felt like if I'm doing it every week, that's kind of enough. So really, you don't need to stay in longer. So I don't know if that helps people. I hope it helps you to know that 30 seconds is really all you need. So what do you do if you don't have a river like I have? I mean, a lot of people are getting these cold plunge pools, or kind of like boxes almost. But you don't have to do all of that. You can, like I said, go outside in the cold. You could turn your shower to cold, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But you really don't have to do you don't have to spend a lot of money is what I'm trying to say. There's all these places that have this cryotherapy, or yes, you can get exposed to super cold. And I hear people say that's fantastic. I've never done it. I haven't tried it. I probably would try it just for fun and just because I'm into that. But the research says you don't need to have cold exposure for more than 30 seconds. Just a little word of caution: who shouldn't do cold exposure? I mean, it is a bit of a shock, right? As I mentioned, it's hormesis, you're stressing the system. So if you've already got uncontrolled high blood pressure, then you probably don't want to do it. If you've got a history of heart conditions, then you probably don't want to do it. If you're not sure whether you should do cold exposure or not, please check with your health professional. If you have any doubt at all, check with your health professional to see if it's okay for you. Okay, so what's one thing? I always end my podcast with what's one thing someone could do today to help initiate healing? And I would say cold exposure. Start with a shower. So everyone's taking showers, right? Well, I suppose you are. When you're taking your shower, turn the water to cold and just start to count. Start with like whatever you can manage in the beginning, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then over time build up to 30 seconds. And that's all you need. You turn your shower to cold at the end, build up to 30 seconds. To stay calm while you're doing it, just breathe. Okay, see if you can just stay in the moment and just breathe slowly. Try to calm yourself down while you're doing it. And then start to notice how you feel afterwards. Do you feel warmer? Like once you get warm, do you feel warmer for the rest of the day? Do you feel good? Just start to notice those things. All right, my friend. I also want to suggest that if you have pain and inflammation, I've talked a lot about how I use the breath. You can use the breath to help you. Well, you can use the breath to help you do this cold therapy, but you can also use the breath to help with pain relief as well. So I got a great resource. It's called Breathe Away Pain One-Page Mini Class. And if you go to my website, you can get it using this link. So it's thewellnessengineer.com/breathe, BREATHE, the E on the end, breathe. So it's in one page. I've got like a written thing, I got an audio, I got a visual, and I got a lesson. So it's very short, but I'm teaching you some great techniques in this on how to use the breath to dissolve pain. So I hope that helps you. Just go to thewellnessengineer.com/breathe to get it. It's totally free. And do you have someone that might be interested in cold therapy? Or maybe you're interested, or maybe you might have a buddy. So please share this episode with them. I bet they might be interested and motivated to give it a try. And if you have an accountability partner, that's what I've got this year. My husband's trying this with me. Then it helps you stay accountable. So give that cold therapy a try. Let me know what you think. And I hope that after listening to this podcast, you're not so afraid of the cold. You can do this, my friend. All right, take care and have a great day.